The story is called Flying by Donald Cruz. Donald Cruz was born in Newark, New Jersey. He attended school at Cooper Union on the East Coast, where he met his wife, Ann Jonas. She too is a picture book artist and author. He served in the U.S. military overseas in Germany, and he knows a lot about transportation. It seems like half of his books or so have to do with transportation. So in the picture here you can see books like Freight Train and Harbor and Truck. He has a great interest in those subjects and a great talent for drawing them in a way that makes it very fascinating to read his books. On the very first page of this book, Donald Cruz does a self-portrait where he draws an illustration of himself as one of the people in the crowd. See if you can find him on the next page. Boarding. When people get on a plane, it's called boarding. Most modern planes that carry a lot of people have a long tunnel from the airport, and you walk into the door of the airplane, and that's still called boarding. In this photo, and in a few cases even still today, if you're riding a smaller plane, you walk out onto the runway and you climb up some stairs and get in the plane. That's called boarding. Taxiing to the runway. If you live in a good-sized city, you may know that a taxi is an automobile, sometimes even a station wagon or an SUV, that takes you places. You pay them money and you go somewhere. Taxi cab is usually bright yellow, something like that. Nowadays, people also use Uber drivers and people who work for the Lyft company and some other rideshare companies where they're driving their own cars. But that kind of a taxi is not this kind of a taxi. When a plane taxis, it's slowly going on its wheels and it's not yet flying. It waits in a long line until the plane has permission to take off, and then it doesn't taxi anymore, it flies. Ready? Pilots and co-pilots in charge of an airplane have to wait until the control tower sends them a radio message saying that they're cleared for takeoff. So they wait behind special lines marked on the pavement of the runway, and they're ready to take off when they get permission. Take off! Everyone knows the feeling of being in an airplane if you've ever been in one, because it makes your tummy kind of go whoop when you take off and get up into the air. Those are the forces of gravity working as the plane has to get off the ground. If you fly in an airplane on a clear day, it's always fun to look out the window and see. At first, you're flying over the airport. Flying over the airport. Flying over the highways. Flying over rivers. Flying over cities. Can you tell that this is a baseball stadium and that this is a city park? Flying across the country. Out here in the countryside you can see a water tower. You can see farms. You can see a little gazebo and maybe a carousel, pond of water, all kinds of things down below as the plane flies away from where there are a lot of buildings out into the country. Flying high over mountains. These are the kind of mountains that always have trees growing on them. Flying into the clouds. Might be cumulus clouds, might be nimbus clouds, might be stratus clouds, but the plane is high enough it can go right into the clouds. Flying over the clouds. Most airplanes, especially passenger airplanes, are able to go high, high, even above rainy clouds, and they can go up into the bright blue sky, and the clouds are underneath the airplane. Time to head down. Underneath the airplane, you can see a farm out here in the countryside, and then the beginning of a city. Here's a bridge, a river underneath the bridge, and lots of buildings. There's the airport, and the airplane flies over the office buildings and the skyscrapers and the apartment buildings to find the airport. Down, down, down. The airplane lands safely by coming down slowly at the right angle, and the pilot, maybe with help from the co-pilot, lands the airplane on a long, long piece of pavement called a runway. In this picture, this is probably the terminal where people are waiting to meet the people who come in from the plane, and this is the tower where the men and women radio out directions about who can land, who has to wait to take off, and these are the people that help keep all the pilots safe. Down. The plane has touched down safely on the ground. Boarding is the word for getting onto an airplane. The word for getting off is called disembarking. So in this sentence it says, the passengers disembark from the plane after the landing. Disembark. So if your name is Rhea and you live in Austin, Texas, and you've been on a plane a few times, this is a good way for you to remember what that experience is like. If your name is Johnny and you live in Arizona and you've never been on a plane, maybe this is a good way to imagine what that trip will be like. And if your name is Jack or Letitia or Jonathan or Maria, Donald Cruz wrote this book for you. It's called Flying by Donald Cruz.